Okay, we're going to go into InDesign and choose a new file. And so we are going to be working on print. And so InDesign, if you can see, they give you options here along the top. You can do saved, print, web, or mobile. I'm going to go to print. And then it gives you your basic print sizes. We're going to be doing tabloid. Tabloid is 11 by 17. I'm going to take it out of picas, which is how you normally in print work with page layout elements, is in picas. But we're going to use inches for this. So 11 by 17 is the size of our page. We're going to have a vertical or a portrait orientation. We're doing 2 different layouts, so I'm going to change my page to 2. I'm going to turn off facing pages because it's a single poster. It's a single page design, but I'm going to have 2 different versions. So that's why I'm doing 2 pages. Now, right here, you can set up your columns, your gutters, your margins, all of that. And I like to kind of get started by doing that, but you don't have to. What I'd like you to think about is doing a 12, I want to have us all do a 12 column layout. And we're going to have margins that I'm going to put, right now they're all linked. So when I change one, they all change because this little link is selected. So if you notice when I change it, they all change. If I unlink it, I can change each one individually. So I'm going to add to the bottom 1 inch. And I'm going to leave a ½ inch for the other 3 sides. I'm going to say okay. Okay, and here's my document. So I have a margin. Why is a margin important? Who can tell me? Why do we need a margin? Eduardo.
We need a margin so that we can have some like space between like the lettering, the typefaces and everything around it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the best explanation I can give.
Well, that's one, definitely. And I think there's some more technical reasons why we need a margin when we're doing a print piece. What are the limitations of printers? Most printers. Who can tell me? When you print something off a printer. Anyone? They can't print to the end. Go ahead.
Is it factoring off the bleed?
Yeah, well, if we're printing to a printer, a regular printer here on campus, and we want to print on an 11/17 size piece of paper, our printers don't print to bleed. They don't print to the edge. If you print to the edge, you need to print on a larger piece of paper and then trim it down so that it has an edge to edge image. So for our purposes, for printing on a printer, an offset printer here, a Xerox machine kind of printer here, they need to have a margin so that all the image, we don't cut anything off. If we had your type going all the way to the edge, it could be cut off, it wouldn't print, lots of different things. So you want to make sure that your live area is in from the outside where you put your copy so that it's not going to be cut off if it's printed full bleed and then there's trimming, or if it's a printer, it just won't print all the way to the edge and then you're going to lose content and information. So for our purposes, if we want a design that is going to print over to the edge, it would need to be printed on a larger size paper with a bleed and margin down. We can do that, but we'll account for that when we go to print it out, and we'll put it on a larger sheet and it'll have to be trimmed and all of that. But regardless, you still don't want your type going all the way to the edge, even if it is going to be printed on a larger paper and full bleed, because you're still trimming it to 11/17, and you could cut off the copy if it goes right up to the edge. Framing, we talked about framing a little bit. The idea also of framing, so that this idea of keeping everything framed within this size of the sheet of paper, something to think about. So we have a 12-column grid, and now I'm going to have you show on the layout here, you have different options to add if you wanted to ever change your grids. You can go to margins and columns, and here is where, if there was some reason I wanted to change my margins, I could do that here in margins and columns. I could also change my grid columns right here as well. I can change the width of my gutter. The gutter is the space between each column. This little smaller space between each column is my gutter space. All right. We have our rulers on, and you can see on my page I have my rulers on. Command R turns your rulers on and off. You want your rulers on because we're going to use them to make alignments of information. So for this project, we're just going to use a grid. We're not going to be using a modular grid. We're going to be just using a columnar grid, which means there's just columns, but we are going to be thinking about alignments. And so when we put items on the page and we want to make alignments between items, we're going to go up to the ruler and we're going to pull a guideline down to make alignments. So I'm going to pull one down just to show you. So here I just pulled one down and I'm lining it up on the 4-inch mark. So there I've pulled out a guideline. These don't print, but they help me organize my information I'm putting on the page. So you can pull down guidelines as needed when you start pulling your information in. Okay, and so that you can make alignments between items. Any questions? Do we all understand how to make our page layout with our grids?
How do you set it up again, where it's right in before the beginning of before you even put in the document itself?
So you go File, New Document.
Yes.
You mean this window right here?
Yeah, where you're about to like start a new document.
Okay.
I gotta pull up what you're
So
saying.
you go to File, New Document. That's how you get to this window. This
Yeah.
is the new. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So then at the top, you see these options. You can go to Print.
Print. I see, and then tabloid.
Tabloid.
Put it in inches.
Yep.
Okay.
2 pages. Take off facing pages.
Okay.
And then you can adjust your margins right here and your columns. So I'm going to make 12 columns. And I'm going to unlink my margins and make my bottom margin 1 inch. And say, okay.
How many columns do we need?
12.
12 columns, and then do not touch the column gutter.
Yep, leave that alone.
Okay, and the margins we unlink, and that's it.
Unlink and make it the bottom 1 inch.
The bottom 1 inch. Okay, and just keep top as
½ inch. The top and the sides are going to be ½ inch.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And so you'll have 2 pages. If you scroll up and down, you'll see you have 2 pages. And that's for your first design and your second design. So we're going to now start looking at we're going to be looking at our sketches and start transferring our information here onto our layouts. Now our sketches were only half size. We're now working full size. So we're going to start laying in our actual copy. That means the copy you've written, real copy, no lorem ipsum, and our images and our logos. When we set this up as a screen, when we set this up as a print project, I believe it automatically changes the color to CMYK. Let me just double check and see if it does do that in color space. Yes, it does. Okay, so your color should already be set up as CMYK. You want to leave it there because we're going to be printing these out, and that's CMYK. When we get into digital work, that's all RGB, but printed work is CMYK. And for most of the things we do this semester, it's going to be CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is the process colors for printing. And we're going to be using that throughout the semester because a lot of the work we're doing is based on printed work. All right, any other questions about setting up your initial files using these grids? Okay, now, how do we use grids? How comfortable are we? There's a couple things I'm going to point out. And actually, I'm going to grab some copy from one of your groups. So let me just go over here to Mural and get the copy from one of you. 1 second here while I get that. All right, there we go. All right, so I'm going to grab my copy from my group. And so I'm going to start plugging some of this in. So based on my sketches. So a couple things you can do. Actually, I'm gonna grab a sketch actually before I bring in the copy. So when you're on Mural, actually here, let me just pull this all in. I'm gonna just bring all my where's my toolbar? Oh, here it is. Okay, here's my toolbar. On the side here, I'm just gonna pull in all my copy and I'm just gonna put it on the side. I'm going to go over to my Mural board and bring my sketch in. I find it helpful, and I encourage you to do this, is just bring your sketch right in to the Mural board. Give me a second, I'm just going to borrow a sketch. A second. All right. You know what? Why can I not? It's locked down. Like, why can I not get at a sketch? Try another one. Okay. Is it letting me pull from? I don't know if it's going to let me pull from Mural into here. I don't think it will. Okay, I learned something new. All right, so you're going to look at your sketch. I was going to try to pull one in, but it's not letting me pull anyone's in for some reason. That's so anyway. Like Illustrator and other Adobe programs with InDesign, you can open up your layers palette and you can have a separate layer where you put sketches on. So you can always create a new layer and put a sketch. a sketch layer on and move it to the bottom and lock it and keep your sketch available if you want. If not, just looking at it, you can pretty much decide how you want to handle things. So I put all my copy over here on the left so that I could access it easily. And I'm going to bring it over here now. I'm going to go on to my design layer. I call this my design layer. And I'm going to bring in a copy using my copy frame, using my type tool. I'm going to select my copy and bring, all of my windows are opening on my other monitor. Sorry about that. And start looking at the typefaces I want to use and start kind of exploring typefaces of, you know, what I want to use for my design. So if my computer is taking its time. Uh-oh, I have the spiral. Oh, it is working. Okay, good. Make it nice and big. So here is my headline. So I have to make some decisions based on my sketches how I'm doing this. The thing you want to pay attention to is scale. Remember, you're working with I've given you a 12-column grid to give you lots of flexibility, but things need to start and stop in a grid. So for example, this would need to stop, the frame would need to stop here. It can't stop here in a gutter. So you want to think about, or do I have the type going all the way across my poster? That's kind of weird. You don't want to have an orphan in your headline. So we want to think about, how do we organize our type so that it's also working, communicating the way we want it to. And does all the words in the headline, for example, need to be the same weight? A couple things I want to remind you in InDesign you can do is also think about are you using all uppercase or upper and lowercase? What's the case you're using? So under the type menu, you can change your case really quickly to all uppercase, for example, or keep it in sentence case, which is what it was. AIGA, because it is the name of a organization, should always be in all caps though. I see a hand up, Rylan.
Yes, I was just wondering, within the group, do we have to decide if we're using uppercase or lowercase, or is that by person?
That's by person. Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
No, good question. Good question. Yeah. Design wise, now you're all on your own. You're definitely able to design according to what you want to do. The only rule I'm imposing on you is that you're all using the same copy. So if you make a change to the copy, you all have to have the changed copy. So everyone has the exact same copy in your group. But what you do with it is really what I'm looking for, that you all do your own thing, your own typefaces, your own design that is not interdependent on each other. So you have your headline and you're going to then have your strap line. These can be separate type boxes, and I think they probably should be for your poster. Unlike if we were doing a multi-page document like a magazine or something, we would want them all flowing from one box to the other. But because we're doing a poster, that's probably not very useful. So we do want to think about having our type fits our different pieces of this poster in different boxes. The rules are you're allowed to use up to 2 typefaces. So I'm going to just remind you of kind of the next step here. So you're going to choose your strongest 2 designs and develop them in InDesign, working full size, using all the copy. The final images and logos must be included. And now you're choosing your typefaces. We're going to use no more than 2 typefaces for your poster. So who can tell me the difference between a typeface and a font? So when I say you can only use 2 typefaces, what do I mean by that?
typeface the like physical medium, whereas font is like all digital?
That is
Uh,
not correct.
A typeface is like it's like Helvetica or like Comic Sans or whatever. It's like the actual like name of it. And like the font is like the different style, so like bold and italic and stuff like that.
Correct. Absolutely correct, Jason. So when I say you can use two typefaces, that means you can use two typefaces and the whole family of that typeface, all the fonts within that typeface are available to you. Okay. Did everyone understand what Jason just said? Any other questions about typeface? When I mean two typefaces, what that means? So you want to pick two typefaces that are compatible. What makes typefaces compatible? Who can tell me what are some things? Go ahead. Hello, was someone going to say something?
Why?
Chelsea, I'm not hearing you. I think you're trying to answer, but it's not coming out. I don't know if you're having an issue with your sound. Was that you?
No, but I can say something.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea.
So for me, I pair them through visuals first, and then whether or not the serifs or sans serifs pair well together. Yes.
What are things we want to avoid? Maybe it's sometimes easier to talk about what not to do, right? What are some things we should not do when pairing typefaces? Oh, I'm not hearing you. Who's?
Probably not. Well, I was gonna say probably not to do one sans serif and one serif, but you should probably want to do one sans serif and one serif, and instead of having like both, I guess, like both are the same.
No, you're right. You actually want to have contrast. Contrast is very important. So having one that's sans serif and one that's serif is what you want to consider, because that's going to give you contrast. Let me see if I have, it looks like I don't have very many serif typefaces loaded at the moment. I don't know why. I don't know why I don't have any serif typefaces loaded. Am I sorting? Oh, I bet you I'm sorting by sans serif. I am. See, this is why I'm filtering sans serif. This is why I'm like, why don't I have any clear my filters? Okay, that's why. I'm like, why am I not seeing anything else? I had a filter on, silly me. Okay, so you want to filter. You don't want to filter. You want to. Come on. You want to think about contrast and thinking about looking at what will give us contrast between the typefaces. So here's an example of thinking about a sans serif headline and a serif subhead, those kinds of things. You want to also avoid things like having hyphens in your subheads or headlines, okay? So you want to think about how you're organizing your content to not have, and you can do yourself a favor by a couple things. What do we do in this case? Like, let's say I want to have my headline and subhead 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns wide. It has to end here. It's not quite fitting. There's 2 more letters that have to come up here next to the word consider. The way I handle that is what? What do we do to fix this? Do I just go in front here and do a hard return? Is that the answer?
Do you make it longer?
Nope, because it has to be 7 columns wide. I'm lining these edges, so I can't make it longer. What can I do within this constraint?
Could you either adjust the size of the text or adjust the spacing between?
Between what? Spacing between what?
Spacing between characters?
Yes, so the first thing is to try spacing between characters, and that's called what? What do we call that?
Kerneling?
Nope, tracking. Tracking is adjusting the spacing between all the characters. So I just tracked it -10, and look, now it's on there without a hyphen, and it's not too close together. You have to be careful not doing too much tracking where it gets too tight. I might even say, maybe I try this at 8, right? I can still make that work. Kerning, I think, is what the term you were using, but that's just between 2 letters. Kerning is just if you're adjusting 2 letters within a word, we would use kerning. But when we want to adjust the whole line of copy to adjust something like a hyphen, that's tracking. And you want to make sure you're using tracking, either positive or negative tracking. Okay. And then if that still doesn't work, you might have to consider adjusting the scale. But if it's just 2 letters like mine was, you can probably do it with tracking. If it's a lot of letters, then you might have to adjust scale. All right, I'm going to stop talking and let you start laying in your copy, looking at typefaces, looking at your images that you're picking out for your poster. We're going to start thinking about color. Actually, I should probably show you one more thing before we break off and show you color, since we're going to have color involved with your images. Adobe Color, I know those of you who've had me before are familiar with Adobe Color, but you might not all be familiar. The Adobe Color, oops, I'm typing the wrong thing. It's called color.adobe.com, and it's Adobe Color. And this is what it looks like. This is Adobe Color. And what it does is it helps you create color palettes for your projects. And then we can save them into our Adobe libraries. So as you're thinking about your theme, and I know a lot of us are kind of in this category over here of, I'll do a triad. You can do that. These are all the different color theory categories. So like if we go monochromatic, we can do something very, Valentine-y, lovey-dovey here. If we wanted, we can do, which the posters that are up around school for this event right now are all like, it's a monochromatic design. Or let's say we want to go something a little bit more vibrant, some different colors. So you can choose, and you notice how each one of these I change. You can, once you've chosen, I'm using a triadic, you can also slide in to get more pastel colors and out to get more rich, full hue colors. It tells you on each one of these what the hexadecimal number is. And it also tells you the color mode. You can see it's on RGB. That's okay. It'll adjust when we get into InDesign to switch to our color space, which is CMYK. If I want to save this, you can go over here to the save. You have to sign into your Adobe account. And since I was signed out, I got to sign back in. Use the same one that you're using for your applications, okay? Otherwise it won't connect. So you got to put in the same one, which I just did. Okay, Now it's going to allow me to save this to my library. So I'm going to create a new library for my class. So we're going to call this GD2. Class. And then I'm going to create. And now I'll see that that's the name of my library I've just created. And I'm going to call this color theme the AIGA flyer. So I know what it is because I'm going to be making color palettes all the time. So I want to know which one this is for. And maybe it's for my flyer 1 because I'm going to have 2 different flyers I'm working on. I'm going to say save. So there I've just saved my color palette. I'm going to go over here to my InDesign file. And I'm going to go Window, CC Libraries. And my libraries is right there is my new one I just made. And there's my library. So now when I'm working, after I get all my type in and all my stuff in, I can click over here and click right on the color and it will turn my type, the color I wanted from my palette. Do this, so on and so forth. Okay. So that's how you can bring in a color palette into InDesign. And recognize that this is a poster and you can do things like, you know, we talked about things like framing and other elements. You can bring in background colors by just taking the shape tool here and clicking on the color. Or actually cancel. I can click right here on my library. What am I saying? I'm going to click here on my library. I'm going to use yellow. And you go object, arrange, send to back. Okay, and there's my color I just added to the background. And I'm just putting it inside my margin. I don't like having to, and then I'm thinking about my headlines and going, okay, I want to pull the stuff. And you got to make sure that you have enough contrast. Once you start using color, like this color isn't working on the yellow. I can't read this. No one else will be able to read this. So I have to think about, and how does this typeface work in regular? It might need to actually be something a little bolder. Maybe that's not going to work for me. Let's look at Kifa. Oh, that's a little better. That's a thicker typeface. That actually, I think, works a little better for me. And then once I'm moving things around, I might get off my grid. So I want to move things around, keep them inside my columns. Okay. Questions? Any other questions as we are? All right, so we have a little bit of work time. I have to look and see if I can find the COD logo. I'm sure my thought is there probably is something if we do a brand look on here. I don't know if they've actually given me one. You want an SVG file? What about an AI file? That would be better. Did you do a Google search on it? You can only find a very small one, so let me do another look here. I put the AIGA file in our all right, let's see, logo vector file. So I put in College of DuPage logo vector file. Let's see if these are actually vector files. Oh, you know what? Let me just put in College of DuPage brand guidelines. Well, I found a PNG of it for the moment. I will reach out to our secretary and see if I can't find if she probably has access to it. That usually a school this big, I figured they would just have their logos available. Yeah, I see the PNG. That's very small. All right, let me work on that while you guys start your working, and I'll see if I can't reach out to our secretary and get that found for y'all. Any other questions? That's a good one. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to let you guys use this time to work. And I see Lysandra. Yes. I don't hear you. Hello, Lysandra?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, now I do.
Okay, I had it double muted for some reason. Is there any way that you can put the dimensions that you want from us?
Oh, yeah, it's all up on our project sheet.
Okay, it's up there already. Okay, thank you.
Sure.